For our service today, I was so lucky to get to speak with two longtime Foothills members, Lynn Young and Bob Bacon, about what it means to live fully and live well. Bob joined Foothills in 1960 and Lynn joined in 1970, and they've journeyed through many seasons of their lives in this community. We talk about what it means to live well in a world where joy and beauty so often sit right alongside disappointment and suffering. There was so much in this conversation, and you're about to hear a good deal of it. However, if you would like to hear the whole conversation, I'd encourage you to check out our podcast, the Foothills Deeper Pod, when it drops this coming Wednesday. You'll find the Foothills Deeper Pod wherever you get your podcasts. And now let's join Lynn and Bob midstream in this great conversation. Our theme this month is a theme, living your best life. And so I thought we'd have a conversation about what does it really mean to live your best life? Especially, what does it mean to be open to joy, open to love, open to being surprised, even in the midst of times that are difficult and challenging, because the vast majority of the time, life is not perfect. There's always something that's hard. So I thought to help us get to know you a bit, I wanted to invite you to share, when are you living your best life? Or what is an example of where you might be or what you might be doing when you are in your happy place? How about you, Bob?
Well, I think that probably it's feeling a relationship to people, and not just people who are here currently, but people in the past. You know, my background is history. And I suppose the seminal point of this was in junior high, I read a book by Richard Halliburton, who was a world adventurer, and he went to various places and recounted the history. He was at the site of Troy, and he was at Olympia, and offering an offering to Zeus so the clouds would disappear. And I became interested in history and people involved in history. And so I have a connection, it feels like. And so when I dig in the garden, I feel a connection of 5,000 years of people digging in the earth. And when I went to the site of Troy, I remembered Halliburton, his talking about the Trojan War. And when Bev and I were in London more recently, we went to the Globe Theater and we were groundlings in the play of Julius Caesar, and we're saying the will, the will, the will. And so there are so many things that I've done over the years that seem to connect to history and literature and the arts and so forth, that this has been so neat. And of course, as a part of that, it's sharing. And so Bev and I have many of the same interests, and there we were, the groundlings in the Globe Theater saying the will, the will, the will. And you know, it's just been delightful that these connections that I have to the past, as well as sharing them with someone now.
Oh, that is so powerful to feel connections to other humans throughout time.
Right.
Lynn, how about you? Where would we find you if you were in your happy place or living your best life?
I guess through the years, it changes. I find it's not something that I can say, this is my happy place forever. I think as we get experiences, we enrich our life by these experiences. So right now, I would have to say that my family, when I'm with them, is one of my happy places. When we are together, it's such a joy to see how they relate and how they move on with their life, and makes me just really feel good. Another happy place is the mountains. I don't get there that much anymore, but just having the mountains as close as they are, being available to, I guess, just see them right now is I know they're there, and I know the potential is there. So it makes me feel good. We lived in Estes Park for 15 years, between 92 and 2010. So that was a very special time of joy, meeting new people, getting out every day and enjoying the beauty that surrounds us. And I guess the last happy place for me is always with friends.
Mhm.
I find that relationships with people energize me, sustain me, and that's something that I really treasure very much.
Oh, thank you, Lynn. I can relate to looking out at the mountains and just feeling comforted by the potential or the possibility of being able to venture out. So as a way of helping me get to know you a little more, I wonder, looking back in your life and thinking about this moment too, what are some commitments in your life that have been especially gratifying? What commitments have you made, whether it's a professional commitment or a commitment in your family or a commitment in the church community or in the greater community? What commitments have made your life rich?
Oh, they're so rich. First of all, my career was teaching. And so it was hard and it was constant. And the grading of papers was just relentless. And so looking back, you saw the light in a student's eye, the aha moment. You saw a student who was maybe vaguely a student deciding, I'm going to do this. And they become dedicated and move forward. And then as years go on, you get an email from somebody and sometimes a letter, sometimes a phone call. 50 years ago, you changed my life. You know, it was really a marvelous, marvelous career. And then I had another career, which was a legislative career. And you work daily in order to advance legislation. And along the way, sometimes there were disappointments and sometimes there were victories. I remember I worked so hard on trying to end the death penalty in Colorado, and it failed by one vote. And this 2 years ago, it passed the legislature. And so you do the digging in order to move it forward, hoping that it will succeed. And then, of course, as Lynn mentions, family. I mean, rearing a child and having a successful child and marriage and grandchildren, and both Bev and I with our combined families, the grandchildren and children are just great joys to us. And so both a professional career as well as family have been most gratifying to me.
Oh, that's so beautiful, Bob. Thank you. Lynn, how about you as you look back or think about your life right now? What are some meaningful commitments that you've engaged in?
What came to mind right off, Elaine, was the commitment that my husband and I made when we first came across Unitarianism. And I have to really give lots of credit to being involved with the Unitarian Church and how the values and my journey through the various years in the church, meeting different people, with our church going through different challenges, helping move us ahead, has been incredibly rewarding. I too was a teacher early on, but I didn't stay with it as long as Bob did. I was a home economics teacher back when they had that type of a opportunity for young kids. I'd like to see it go back into the schools actually right now. I think that it's a needed skill. But looking back, I think that as I say, my relationship with the church just has shaped who I am and given me joy, empowered me to move ahead with love, compassion, and understanding.
I feel like this is a good segue into our conversation today about what it means to live a good life, or how do we live life fully. And I want to invite you into some storytelling and reflection with this question here. When in your life have you experienced a meaningful connection or even a sense of fulfillment during a time that was a time of difficulty and challenge in your life?
What came to mind first when I read this, Elaine, when you said it out, was our experience right after Bob, my husband, got his doctorate. He was hired by the University of Arizona. So we packed up our kids, and we had 2 at the time, and moved to Arizona. So it was a time of challenge. It was a time of excitement. We were new to the town. We knew nobody. We had just bought a house. All of these kind of steps that you take that are exciting and yet sort of scary. And we decided that we would introduce the kids to some type of religious education. We felt that it was necessary. We had both come out of a different faith. Myself particularly had come out of a Presbyterian background. So we showed up at the Unitarian Church in Tucson, Arizona. At the time, they only had one. And I was immediately impressed by everything. And particularly what I was looking for was a religion that did not promote the concept that so many Christian churches did of original sin. And I just could not understand how people could follow along with that concept that we're all born with some type of original sin. When you look at the child that's just been born, that is a totally beautiful, clean slate. And so from that point on, I guess that, so that, to answer your question, I guess a challenge led us, well, go back, I shouldn't say a challenge. It was a hard time at that time that we found someplace where we could feel home and that our children would be safe and comfortable.
Right.
It was kind of a surprise, you might say. We didn't expect the journey to be such a good one.
I have almost a similar kind of experience. As a student of history in college, I learned about the Enlightenment of the 18th century and the whole idea that what we know from human experience and reason. And so if it is not common to experience certain things, we approach it with skepticism. And so I came out of the normal Christian background as well. And so with all, I suppose, the virgin birth and miracles and so forth seemed to me to be a bit unbelievable. And so when I discovered, I was in college and a group of us lived together and we went to various churches, and this was in Bloomington, Illinois. And we went to the Unitarian Church and I had an aha moment. And so when I came to Fort Collins, then I discovered the Congregational Unitarian Church and went and I said, I'm home, I'm here.
Yes.
They're accepting what I believe, and anything that I move in my spiritual journey, I'm going to have support of all of these people. And they're going to support me. And together we're going to try to forge a better world. And we say this covenant every year about service being the law, and to live together in peace and to help each other. And that is ultimately, I think, what the Christian message was. And when I came here, it was part of the affirmation was to affirm the Christian personality and the pattern of Jesus. And this was so freeing to me, and the church and the associations that I've had all these years with the church have sustained all that. And so there has been this cooperation between my faith in the church and the whole idea of how we support moving society forward and helping each other as the greater society, as what are the values that we have as human beings, and getting rid of all of this stuff on top that really makes no sense. And so let's get to the fundamentals, and there we are. And I think that this is what our church has done, and certainly for me, and I think it has done it for the community. And that's why I support it wholeheartedly and have for many years.
Oh, yeah. There's something so beautiful, Bob, in getting together as Unitarians and sharing ideas, sitting down together and talking about what we believe in and forming our values and what we believe in that way, instead of being spoon-fed something that maybe might not be true.
That's right. Certainly open to question.
Yeah.
A good deal of skepticism is good.
Yes.
I wonder how, over the years, being a part of this community, grounded in compassion, grounded in the free search for truth and meaning, where are times when you have been held by this community, or when have been times when being a part of this way and these people has really made a difference?
I think for me, the thing that stands out most is when, with the sudden passing of my husband, Bob, back in 2013. It was totally unexpected. The church rallied around. Our family had incredible support, and we felt loved, protected. We had a family that was affected by, we felt the church was our family too. So the connection with the church has helped me move on and learn to appreciate the lives that Bob led, along with how it affected me and how I grew in the relationship. So it helped me understand it. With every passing, they're sad, yes, but we do celebrate the life. And it's taught me to look at it with great appreciation for that life, and puts a little bit of a positive spin on it, acknowledging the sadness, and yet moving on with love in the heart for what we had. And I can see it in the family, in our relationships and everything. It's very special.
It is. Courage to walk into a dawning day. For 14 years, I was in the legislature, and every Sunday I would come to church during the legislative session. And during the week, we would work so hard on bills and advancing all of those causes that really are much like Unitarian causes, in order to move society ahead and to protect and do those sorts of things. And it was filled with frustration with various people who were opposed to it, and also getting coalitions together. And when we did Spirit of Truth and Courage to Walk into the Dawning Day, that almost was an affirmation every Sunday. I'm going to go back and do this work again, regardless of how hard it is. And then even in the earlier days in teaching, why are we doing this? It is in order to build the better community. And so we hope to, and we believe in the democratic method of solving problems, and it requires some enlightenment and knowledge of the world in order to make those decisions. And so you had the courage in order to make sure that the democratic institutions and society moves forward with citizens coming through the school system that are aware and are dedicated to that sort of thing. And so the church for all these years with the principles have really informed both of my careers over the years in order to steel my resolve and to give me courage to walk into the dawning day.
I feel like this is such a beautiful combination of, I guess in minister jargon, the pastoral and the prophetic, right? The way that we care for each other's hearts and the way that in turn we take our values out into the world to make change for the better.
Right, right.
So another question for you, looking back on your life, when was a time when now you could see that you were living your best life, that life was sweet and good, but you didn't realize it at the time? And what do you think kept you from seeing it that way at the time?
Ooh. That's a hard question, Elaine, because as I mentioned earlier, I feel that when you refer to the best life, it's kind of a moving target. So much depends on your experience that you bring into any situation. I think some of my best life, I was fortunate between my junior and senior year in college to take a year off and travel for 9 months with 2 other friends in Europe. We did a combination of bicycling, hitchhiking. This is way back in 1954. So the world was a little bit different. It just come out of World War II. There was evidence around of a lot of devastation in many of the communities. But for me, it was looking back on it, a wonderful time of relationships with the 2 friends that I was traveling with. And it was a growing period. I think I was a very shy person when I went into school, but this being on your own and making your own decisions and seeing the world firsthand really changed me. I came back a different person. And looking back, it was probably some of my best days. And yet I've been fortunate and had quite a few best days. So it really is hard to single out. I think we've all had our best days and then not so best days.
Yeah, but in order to make best days, we have to do the preparation before it. And sometimes when we're preparing in order to have our best days, we don't realize that this spade work is so important in order to achieve that. Mm-hmm. And it may seem tedious at the time, but recognizing that it's necessary in order to achieve those best days. Mm-hmm. You don't make an omelet by just saying, I want an omelet and it's there. You have to crack the egg and you have to beat them, and then you all these sorts of things. And it's the same sort of thing with life. We do all those things necessary so that the best days are possible. And sometimes when we're doing those mundane things, rearing children and all of the things dealing with life, we don't realize that that whole experience is going to lead to this joy that we have as parents with our children and our grandchildren as time goes on. And so I think that a part of it is that we have to recognize that sometimes life is hard, but you put one foot in front of the other in order to get to the destination. And both Lynn and I are at a point where we can reflect back on all of that. And we can forget a lot of the trauma and the difficulties and the out of money before the end of the month on such low salaries. And it was really trying, but looking back, the joys certainly outweigh the difficulties that we had. Or maybe we have convenient forgetting. We can the selective memory of those times. And so many of us don't dwell on those horrible, or not just horrible, but trying events in order to hold up and to revel in those events and the life that we have now that is so meaningful for us.
Yeah. I think that one thing also, Bob, we have to sort of reflect on as we look back on the various experiences we've had is gratitude.
Absolutely.
That looking back on things, every experience we have is an opportunity for growth in some way or another. And so for me, it's looking back with gratitude at what we were and what we became.
Yeah, in the larger sense too, I think we have to recognize that we were born in a country and a time in which many human beings who lived on the face of the earth did not have the opportunities that we have. And we're white, we're middle class. We had many advantages that many people did not have. And I certainly recognize it today that oftentimes I say I've lived through the golden age, that I've been able to do and believe and contemplate things that my previous ancestors didn't even have the opportunity to do because they had to work so hard in order to sustain life. And I've had such gifts in order to have an education and have experiences and travel and love and family. It's just been an absolutely great life. And so you're right, Lynn. We need to have gratitude for this, that we are very fortunate in our time and place and experiences.
I wonder if you might be able to share a story about a time in your life where you were able to be open to both joy and connection and love, and also acknowledge that you were in a time of suffering. And how are you able to hold both of those things at the same time?
Well, for me, there was a time in my life that after nearly 25 years of marriage, my marriage fell apart. And I looked at myself, my life, and I said, yeah, you're a failure. But then on the other side of the coin, I said, you got to put one foot in front of the other and go on. And engage in work and meaningful work in order to move forward. And life did proceed forward, and love came again, and life was better than it had been previously. And so a part of it is the resolve to move forward despite difficulties. And then I do have a trick. I pull out my stoicism on occasion. And as Epictetus says, everything is opinion. And if your opinion is that it is harmful and you've been hurt, then you have been hurt. But if you don't have an opinion about that, just get rid of it and think about it at another time. It's not important right now to think about it. Move ahead with what is important.
I guess my reaction, Elaine, is I go back to the passing of my husband, and I have to add also, my oldest son passed away 2 years ago, so I've had the double loss that we've moved through. And I think that, as I mentioned earlier, that there is a great sadness there, but also a celebration of the life, and look upon these lives with gratitude, thankfulness that we experienced this person, that person touched our lives.
Right.
So I have a quote that I've always liked very much, and it's from Reverend Richard Gilbert, who's probably retired now. I don't know him personally, but he said, "I did not think my way into religious living, as much as I lived my way into religious thinking." And I've always thought that's a very apt thing for what I can speak for happened in my life. And I invite everyone to join us in the journey.
That's right. It's a great journey, a good group to journey with.
Yes.
Well, I couldn't think of a more appropriate note for us to end on. So thank you, Lynn, for that quote from Dick Gilbert. And Bob and Lynn, thank you so much for this conversation. I feel like I've really received a gift of inspiration just by talking with you right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you, Elaine.